What's happening, everybody? It is Trey here. I'm joined again by my dad, Sean, and today we are going to take it way back on reactions to the classics, to the 1956 debut album of the king himself, Elvis Presley. If this is your first time joining us at the channel, y'all, we really appreciate it. Here, reactions to the classics. We take a look back at some of the most classic albums of all time and do a detailed track-by-track review of them. We make sure to listen to the record a lot of times to get familiar with it, and just like today, it is usually the first time we've listened to the album. So that sounds like something interesting to you. Be sure to hit that big red subscribe button, and if you would like to link up with us further, we have a great community at our Facebook group down below, as well as our Patreon if you'd like to support us and get some perks yourself. All that to say, let's dive into this debut record.
Well, as you said, it's his debut album. It came out in March of 1956. In the UK, this album was known as Elvis Presley Rock and Roll, and it's number 56 on the Rolling Stones top 500 albums of all time. And Trey, I got a little personal connection with Elvis. He died when I was 5 or 6 years old. I remember the night he died. My mom loved him. I've heard tons of his songs growing up. I had only heard one of these songs. This is way early stuff, as you mentioned, but one of my earliest memories is her sitting on the side of her bed on the phone with her mom crying, and I'm like, what is going on, man? And Elvis had died. I mean, the impact this guy had. So that's kind of why we're diving into this thing, man. He is the king of rock and roll. So the background to how this album came about: by the second half of 1955, Elvis was signed with Sun Records and Sam Phillips, and some of his singles started making the country charts. He just hired Colonel Tom Parker as his manager. Colonel Tom had a really good relationship with RCA Victor because of one of his recording artists, Eddie Arnold, was big on their label. He convinced them to buy Elvis's contract from Sun Records for a sum that would have been about $320,000 of today's money. Major labels kind of steered away from rock and roll. This was the first RCA Victor pop album to make $1 million, and it sold 1 million copies in 1956.
Yeah, and it also topped the charts, first rock album ever.
Correct.
And so this really is a influential and historical record,
Yes.
not just for Elvis, but as you said, just for rock and roll.
For rock and roll in general, this thing doesn't exist. I don't know where we are.
The record companies wanted to capitalize on Presley's popularity that was sweeping across the nation due to his TV appearances, as well as the release of his classic single, Heartbreak Hotel. In the 50s, general practice dictated tracks having greater commercial potential to be released as singles, with tracks of lesser appeal being placed on the record. So the rights to the Sun studio tapes had transferred to RCA Victor with the sale of his contract, so 5 previously unreleased Sun songs were added to 7 of the RCA Victor session songs to make up the 12-song album.
But that takes us into our first song, Blue Suede Shoes, which was written by Carl Perkins. Elvis knew Carl Perkins. Him, Carl, and Johnny Cash were all on a concert tour. That must have been something to see. Perkins' version of Blue Suede Shoes is number 95 on the Rolling Stones top 500 songs of all time. His version went to number 1. Because Elvis was friends with Carl, he pleaded with RCA Victor not to release his version as a single to compete with Carl. So they released his version 8 months later in August of 56. Elvis's version went to number 20, and it is one of the greatest starts to an album that I've ever heard. It's iconic. It is an unbelievable song. You know, 1 for the money, 2 for right away.
Just start off with
is great.
that Elvis voice. I was familiar with this track as the only
Yeah,
one.
me too. The only one I was familiar with.
And I mean, the 1 for the money, 2 for the show. Just that Elvis drawl, and
You can feel the charisma, power.
Oh yeah, and it's just pure rock and roll. I mean, just a banger from the start, ready to get going. I think it's deemed as a classic and one of his most popular songs for a reason, and that'll take us into the second track, I'm Counting on You. And this, what you were talking about, Dad, with the stripped back, almost slower ballad type songs. This is what we had here, and for me, this didn't really work too well.
Didn't work for me either. This is my least favorite song on here by a mile, but the thing is, back then, it was common to do covers of songs in the 40s and 50s, and a few of these songs were written in the late 20s and 30s. So I think at this point, Elvis is very young. He's really kind of trying to do it the way the original was done, and I think that comes through on the style. Like Blue Suede Shoes, the previous track, we felt Elvis. That's Elvis. Some of these, it almost doesn't even sound like Elvis, but he was doing what he had to do at the time.
Exactly, and so for me, I'm with you. This was my least favorite track. Just again talking about love. Essentially,
he's counting on her.
Yeah, to love him. Not one that sticks out in my mind, but we go back to a more rocking number.
Yeah, we come up to I Got a Woman, written and recorded by Ray Charles originally. This works better for me than the previous song. It's a good Elvis performance.
Yeah, exactly. You got the blood pumping a little more after we came down from the previous track. I will note that the guitar work here by Scotty Moore and Chet Atkins, though he wasn't on this track, was fantastic throughout. I thought his backing band throughout the whole record really complemented his voice.
Agreed, and that brings us up to One-Sided Love Affair, which was originally written and recorded by Bill Campbell.
Yeah, this one was pretty solid for me as well.
The chorus sticks in your head. He sings that one-sided love affair really, really well.
We get back to that patented Elvis voice, at least in my mind, of what it is. And even though this was a semi-slower track, it worked because I think they let Elvis be Elvis. And essentially the song is talking about love goes both ways. You gotta give if you're gonna take, essentially, in the relationship. And Elvis actually noted in a 1956 interview that this was his favorite song on the record.
Yeah, and he changed the lyrics up a little bit from Bill Campbell's version, which wasn't highly thought of, but he kind of made it his own a little bit. And yeah, I agree with you. It's a really good song. Which takes us right to I Love You Because. This was written in 1949 by Leon Payne. Elvis first recorded it in 1954 at the Sun Studios. This is my second least favorite song. It's this style. It doesn't even really sound like Elvis. And once again, I think he's trying to sing it the way they're telling him to sing it to fit in. I mean, he's not the King Elvis yet, so he's kind of got to stay with music protocol at the time.
Yeah, I'm with you here. It's, I think that it's impressive that he was able to go out and showcase some of these different vocal ranges.
Right.
But yeah, for me, the arrangement of the song and just the style of it is not my cup of tea, even after multiple listens. And then that takes us to the end of side A, to Just Because, which was originally recorded by a group called the Nelstone Hawaiians in 1929.
Yeah, and you can hear the Hawaiian influence in this thing.
Yeah, you really can. You just at the beach, just chilling, and kind of has that musical arrangement.
I like the lyrics to the song, even though it was written in 29. It's impressive lyrics because he's telling her, just because your mama thinks you're good looking, just because Santa Claus is gone because she took all his money, he's telling her he left her before she left him. So it's kind of putting it to the woman who thinks that she's all that.
Exactly, and I think this was a wise decision to have this inside A. Again, a little more upbeat number, and for that reason, I enjoyed it.
Well, Trey, we start side B off with Tutti Frutti, one of the most iconic songs in rock history. Written and recorded by Little Richard originally. His version is number 43 in the Rolling Stones top 500 songs of all time. Just a tremendous song. Elvis's version is great because vocally he can carry it.
Oh, absolutely. Just as you said, the bomb bomb doo-wop, like the way the song starts off, it is just classic rock and roll, man. And to have the king of rock and roll do a cover of this song, Little Richard's version, is fantastic as well. They're both great. I thought it was a wise decision to start off the B side with a rock and roll number. We had Blue Suede Shoes starting off the last side. Tutti Frutti starting off this one, talking about Daisy and Sue, the girls there. Again, love is a theme that permeates a lot of rock and roll.
There's hardly any lyrics to it. So unless you have a powerful voice, you can't sing this song. It's all about the singer. It's all about the power.
The inflections they do.
Right, and Elvis carries it off flawlessly even at this young of an age.
We follow that up with Trying to Get to You, a cover of a song by a group called the Eagles from 1954. This was interesting because Elvis actually sings while he's simultaneously playing the piano. Again, it was kind of it wasn't a ballad, wasn't a true rock and roll, a little bit in the middle there, and I enjoyed it.
It's got a little bit of gospel at the end, a little preview of what was coming down the line for Elvis Aaron Presley on the gospel side of things, but a little mention of darkness and light. He's trying to get to her, she loves him, he's going over mountains, he's doing whatever he's got to do to get to his girl. I think it's a really good number.
I'm going to sit right down and Cry Over You is our next track. This was originally written by Joe Thomas in 1953, and the song is about just what the title says. If his girl ever tries to leave him, he's going to sit right down and cry over her.
Yeah, she's not going to leave him from the lyrics, but he just wants her to know, if you ever leave, that's how much I love you. So for me, it's a middle of the road on this album for
Yeah.
me. Not bad, not great. It's
It
fine.
almost had that saloon-like sound. With
Yeah, that's a good.
the piano, and yeah, just a solid song.
Now we're up to I'll Never Let You Go, in parentheses, Little Darling, originally written by Jimmy Wakely. He's sorry he made her cry. He apologized to her, please stay with me. This one is another one of those ballads that was sung in a different kind of voice. He's trying to stay with the original.
Yeah, you wouldn't even know if you played this to somebody off the street. They had no idea it was Elvis.
No, they would have no idea. This song never grew on me. It's right up there with my least favorite.
Yeah.
It's just a pattern. It's nothing against Elvis, nothing he's doing. He's got to walk the line of what we're doing in 1956. Now we have Blue Moon, just a classic track. It was written all the way back in 1934. You can tell by listening to it, it's very stripped back instrumentally. I think his vocal performance is really good, though, even though it's a slower song. You could hear it was Elvis on this one.
Yeah.
He wasn't trying to sing it any other way.
Yeah, and of the ballads on this is by far my favorite one.
Agreed.
The stripped back arrangement, you know, you really just have like that plucking acoustic guitar and just Elvis's voice. So his vocal performance really had to carry this track,
Yes.
and it did. It's a haunting song, one that is a highlight on side B. And we close the record out with another rock number, Money Honey. This song was originally written in '53, came out by the Drifters, and their version is 252 on the Rolling Stones Top 500 songs. That's what, like the fifth one this
Yeah, like I said, yeah, they chose very good ones. And this song's very simple what it's about. I love it. It's all about money, honey. Every relationship he walks through, starting with the landlord at the beginning, it's about money, honey. It's conditional. Our good standing is about whether it's the man and the woman or the landlord and the tenant is about money.
And I think that it's always interesting to know which songs start and end each side of the record. And every one of these was a more rock and roll type vibe to it. And I thought that was, again, a wise decision, a good upbeat number to leave the listener, pumped up, ready to rock with Elvis as he plays him off with Money Honey. So again, a solid track, and that'll take us to our favorite tracks.
And we already talked about Blue Suede Shoes. Far and away is my favorite track on this album.
Me too, and I put Tutti Frutti, the cover.
I agree.
Very solid, as well as the Blue Moon, if you want to throw in one of the ballads there as well. And now we'll go into our overall score of the records. We got to remember it's 1956. The album format isn't really, obviously what we know it, 60 years later today.
Yeah, exactly. And they were trying to put better singles out, and then
The best songs, as you said, were put out as singles.
So we got to put it into context. So it does make it tough to rate, but the Beatles wouldn't exist without Elvis.
No.
Bruce Springsteen wouldn't exist if we want to go into the 70s, 80s, because they both talked about how much, and I mean, rock and roll music itself wouldn't be anything like it is. So for that reason, I'm going to give this album a 7.5. It's nothing of Elvis's ability. It's just the way he had to be produced to here, sing this song like it was sung in 1930. Let's try to ease some rock in there with some other stuff that people are comfortable with. So as we go through his discography, and that's the plan, we plan on going through his whole studio album discography. We'll get to where Elvis gets to be Elvis pretty soon.
Yeah, and I'm going to echo you, 7.5 for me as well, just for the historical, context, as you said. Let us know what you think of Elvis Presley down below. As always, thanks for the research.
Enjoyed it.
And be sure to hit that big red subscribe button, y'all. We upload twice a week in a variety of genres. So until next time, y'all, happy listening. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.